Good evening, everyone. Please take your seats. I'd like to welcome you to the Glendale City Council meeting of December 14th, 2010. May we have the roll call, please?
Council members: Draymond.
Here.
Friedman.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Najarian.
Here. Councilmember Weaver, would you lead us in the flag salute?
Please join with me in our flag salute. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the invocation. As we approach the holiday season, may the spirit of goodwill, love, sacrifice, and giving fill our hearts. We continue to pray for those in our military who serve abroad, and we pray for the safety and security for the friends and family of those who are away. May this council deliberate with wisdom in their decision-making this evening. May they work in harmony and respect for one another so that we may benefit from their decisions and live and work and learn in our neighborhoods for many years to come. Amen.
May we have your report?
The agenda for the December 14, 2010 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on Thursday, December 9, 2010 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. The next item?
3 is presentation and appointments. There are none.
We will
I have a
appointment.
recommendation, for the Commission on the Status of Women.
Thank you.
Chris Garcevanian, young person who I think is going to do a very good job, went to Glendale Community College, UCLA, did multiple volunteer type of work, and I would like to put his name in nomination.
Okay. And what commission was that for?
Commission on the Status of Women.
And did you say his name or her name into nomination?
Young,
Taking a page out of my book, are you?
you set the trend, Mr.
Thank you.
Gang.
And a question for the clerk. Last week or the week prior, I was appointed to a nominating thing was historic preservation. Have there been any applications submitted?
Mr. Mayor, I am not certain. I was actually at a conference last week, and I just returned yesterday. I will check and send any applications to you.
Thank you very much.
There may be some previously outstanding. There may be some applications that are still on file that are still valid.
Okay.
As well.
Very good. Let's move to the next item.
Item 4 is City Council and staff comments.
Mr. Weaver.
Yeah, just a correction. I do appreciate the 2 articles on the Glendale Roseville, including the one in today. The only thing the press has wrong is that I'm not the chairman of a subcommittee of the Rose Float Association. I'm a volunteer crew chief for Phoenix Decorating Company, so it's totally separated from the city of Glendale. And I would like to thank the volunteers. We've already had 500 students and adults have signed up, and more groups are calling that want to come work on the float. So this is turning out to be probably the biggest year we've had in terms of recruits. We're going to be helping other floats get decorated because we have far more than any other float builder in there, especially including the city of Los Angeles, who if they have 10 or 12, they're lucky. We've had over 160 in the first day and over 120 last week. So it's done well. Anybody wants to sign up still can. We work through the 30th. We work this Saturday and then every day after Christmas, starting on the 26th, which is the lightest day, always, because it's the day after Christmas. You just type in Glendale Rose Float. Don't put www, just Glendale Rose Float. Noyveg, NOYVEG.com. That'll bring you to the site and you can sign up. We're just about totally computerized now, which really is simplifying things. So, again, I thank for the community support and kids are getting their community service hours, which is a good thing for the kids. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Oy vey, Mr. Weaver.
Noyveg.
Say oy vey or?
No, Noyveg. VEG. Our webmaster put that one on there. Don't ask me why.
Yeah, kind of catchy.
Boy, they.
Thank you. Any other items?
That'll do it.
Mr. Draymond?
Well, I was going to talk about my experience in visiting the GATE program opening, but Councilmember Friedman, as chair of the redevelopment agency, had mentioned it at the afternoon. Of course, it wasn't exactly afternoon anymore, but the afternoon meeting. So I anticipate she's going to probably address it again. But I also went to the opening of that. Our GATE program is our vacant storefront art program. Had its kickoff on Friday night. Is it Friday night? It's all a blur now this time of the year. Friday night. It was fantastic. I encourage all of you to go. It's in empty storefront space at 101 North Brand. You can't miss it. As you drive by, it beckons you to stop. You'll see a very attractive-looking easy chair that's made out of neon that will cause you to stop. If nothing else, it illuminates the whole front end. But there's the downstairs space and then also an upstairs space immediately adjacent to California Pizza Kitchen. And the artworks are amazing. What was even more interesting about it was the number of people that turned out. It was packed. And as I understand it, the attendance grew after later in the evening. It's just phenomenal, and this is exactly the kind of thing that this council had hoped for in getting this program rolling. Anyway, I wanted to compliment Councilmember Friedman in making this suggestion and bringing it forward, and to compliment my colleagues in supporting her on that. It is a success. It's a wonderful program. Go and see it. We'll be doing more of that, I'm sure.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman?
Well, I just want to, again, thank my colleagues for supporting the project, the GATE project as it's now called. And I want to thank the artists who are entrusting us with their artworks. We had over 200 applications from local artists who are interested in having their works displayed, and hopefully we'll have a chance to display many more. Legacy Partners is the owner, or rather the manager of the building, the 101 North Brand building, which is right next to BJ's Pizza Restaurant, if you're not familiar with the address, right across from the Galleria on Brand Boulevard, if you're looking for the display. I want to thank them because they were the first property owners to take the leap and say, yes, we'll allow the city to come in and put this installation inside of our space. And they're to be commended for that. And I want to personally invite other property owners and property managers who have vacancies. Please give us a look. The program is free to property owners. It doesn't cost you anything. We provide the insurance. We clean the space. We make the space look beautiful. And having the art in a lit-up window really shows off your space the way that just having a for-lease sign in a darkened building really doesn't. And you'll be doing a great bit of good for the community as well. So I do hope that anybody who drives by and notices the art, if you're so inclined, to drop us an email, let us know what you think. Love it or hate it, I think there's great benefit to having art in our downtown, and certainly no benefit to having dark, empty windows. So thank you, Council, for your support on this.
Thank you. Mr. Quintero? Any comments? I have a few significant comments. I would like to request that we adjourn tonight's meeting in the memory of Dr. Michael J. Hagopian. Dr. Hagopian was born in Kharpert in 1913, which was then Western Armenia. Dr. Hagopian survived the Armenian genocide and emigrated with his family to the United States, eventually settling in Fresno in 1927. He would go on to receive his bachelor's and master's degrees in political science from the University of California, Berkeley, and his PhD in government and international relations from Harvard University. During his years as an educator at several universities, realizing the need for better educational films for his classes, Hagopian embarked on his second career in film, completing 2 years of graduate work in cinema at the University of Southern California. Over a 40-year period, Dr. Hagopian made over 70 educational and documentary films, which garnered over 160 national and international awards, including 2 Emmy nominations. His documentary film archive includes nearly 400 interviews of survivors and witnesses to the Armenian genocide, traveling around the world to record their accounts in 10 languages. He established the Armenian Film Foundation in 1979 as a nonprofit, educational and cultural organization dedicated to the documentation in motion pictures of Armenian heritage and life. He was the recipient of numerous awards and recognitions. He was also a fervent voice for genocide recognition and awareness. Dr. Hagopian is survived by his wife Antoinette, children James Michael, Maui, Hawaii, Joan. James Michael lives in Maui, Hawaii. Joan in Berkeley, David in Thousand Oaks, William in Honolulu, and 5 grandchildren. And in lieu of flowers, donations may be made to the Armenian Film Foundation or the Conejo Valley Historical Society. And those of you who attended the City of Glendale Armenian Genocide Recognition event, I believe it was probably about 4 years ago, his films, the Forgotten Armenian Genocide, was featured, and he was also a speaker at that event. And he was 97 years old. Well, this next item has really been getting a lot of news attention recently, and it's about driving in Glendale. And driving is more than getting from one place to another. It's also about understanding that you control a 2-ton weapon capable of death and destruction each and every time you get behind the wheel. Last week, jurors convicted a 20-year-old Glendale resident of felony reckless driving. And just this morning, Glendale police arrested a young woman on charges of gross vehicular manslaughter resulting from the September 15, 2010 death of an 80-year-old man. It was an accident that could have been prevented had it not been for texting. The results of these 2 incidents are the death of one of our residents and a young man paralyzed. 2 collisions, 4 families irrevocably destroyed, and a community that has been called to action. We have to remember that getting behind the wheel is a responsibility that none of us can take for granted. We must pay attention to the road and not drive while distracted. We have to remember that our cars are deadly weapons if not driven responsibly. To help stem the tide of traffic accidents and fatalities, our city has developed a multi-pronged approach to help prevent these accidents. Through a series of engineering, enforcement, and outreach methods, Glendale will be working hard to prevent these senseless traffic accidents. And you may have seen some of the recent efforts. Glendale's new outreach effort is called Driven to Distraction, and it's focused on reminding drivers to pay attention behind the wheel. Sending a text while driving, reaching for music, or any other distraction while driving has already hurt or killed people in our community. So we're asking you, the community, please prevent these type of traffic and pedestrian incidents. Slow down. Pay attention to your driving. Watch for pedestrians crossing, and don't be driven to distraction. We don't want to lose any family members, any friends, grandparents, or children. So tell your children, tell your parents, tell your grandparents, please be careful. And I need to point out also that starting this holiday season, we are going to be conducting DUI checkpoints on the streets in Glendale. We're not going to announce what days they're going to be, but be assured that you should not think that you can go to a holiday party, have a few drinks, a few wines, beers, whatever, and get behind the wheel and just skirt into Glendale and make it home safe, because we're going to be there with traffic checkpoints, and we're going to be checking all the vehicles on major roads. And if you're suspected of drunk driving, you will be arrested right on the spot and booked. And I can tell you that a drunk driving case will cost you thousands of dollars, it will cost you your license, and it could very well cost you your reputation. So please be careful. We don't want to lose any of our residents. It's already gotten to the epidemic point here in Glendale. Every day, our Blackberries go off, and when I see it's from our public information officer, I'm afraid to open it up and see what it is. Most of the time, they are traffic accidents involving injuries or death. So I wish you all a very happy holiday season, but please, let's be careful while we drive. Okay, any comments from staff? Starbird, did you want to make an announcement before we go to consent?
As you go to consent, before you take the item up, I would like to make a brief announcement by way of statement, if you'll indulge me for just a second. It's regarding item 5I on your consent calendar, which is a report of the Director of Community Planning requesting approval of funding to conduct a historic resources survey of the Ross Moyne neighborhood. This is to inform the City Council that my home is within the area of the proposed historic district and therefore creates a possible conflict of interest for me under the California Political Reform Act. As such, I will not be participating, instructing, advising, or discussing any matter which pertains to the proposed Ross Moyne Historic District. At such time as an agenda item which involves the proposed district appears on the agenda, I will announce the existence of a potential conflict and the basis thereof. If the matter is on the agenda as an action item or hearing, I will leave the room. I've advised the Director of Community Planning to direct any questions or concern, whether substantive or procedural, regarding the proposed district to Assistant City Manager Yasmin Beers.
Okay. So as long as it's on consent, you can be with us, but should it be requested to be pulled or any discussion, you will be recusing yourself. So let's go to item 5. I do have a request to pull item 5C.
Mayor, I'll move the remainder of the consent calendar.
Okay. Second.
Thank you, and we do require one abstention from Councilmember Friedman on the minutes of 11:16.
Okay.
Councilmember Strayman?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. 5C, please.
5C is Director of Public Works regarding waste conversion technology project, selection of consulting firm. At C1 is motion awarding a consulting contract to HDR Engineering, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $199,580.
Thank you. Al Hoffman.
Good evening, Mayor Najarian, Council, and staff. Al Hoffman, resident of Glendale. This is an interesting item. I was just wondering, has former Mayor Carl Raggio been consulted on this item? We've come here several times with that. He has proposed it. There's an actual working system. I'm assuming this is for converting trash into electricity and whatever you can use it for. And he presented it here. He presented it to our Homeowners Coordinating Council several years ago. NASA has developed this thing. It's running. It's working. And he's volunteered to help out. A couple of years ago, I was involved with somebody in the county of Los Angeles as a result of Carl's efforts. And I'm wondering why we have to have a consulting contract now to spend $200,000 for a consultant when we have at-home people here that can do this. It just doesn't seem reasonable. And has anybody contacted Carl before you made this decision? That's my question,
you.
my concern on the issue.
Mr. Zern?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I have kept Mr. Raggio involved. In fact, Mr. Raggio, along with Hank Sheets, you may be familiar with Mr. Sheets, have both expressed an interest in the project and asked if they can do anything to help us. And I think they have a lot that they can bring to the project, and I've kept them involved. This level of technology goes well beyond anything that we in this city have ever done before, and that's why we're requesting assistance from a consulting firm that has that expertise. This is the initial phase of what could be a multi-phased process as we go forward in developing this type of a project. But certainly Mr. Raggio, and I spoke with him just recently, consulted with him, kept him involved, and we've got some other things that we're going to continue to do in concert with what the consultant will be doing for us.
And I had long conversations with Carl, too.
And the technology is advancing rapidly every month.
Absolutely. The particular project that Mr. Raggio is familiar with is an older project in the East Coast, so you have a different air quality requirements and a different type of technology, but the concept's the same. It's the efficient disposal of trash, and today you're absolutely right, Mr. Mayor. There are multiple technologies, very advanced, and what we want to do is try to find the one that best suits our needs now and in the future.
And this consultant will help us make those decisions.
That is our hope, and we believe so, yes.
and if the public will be able to give their input and read the reports and read and comment to the council at such time that the recommendations come forward.
Absolutely.
Mr. Quintero.
And what made HDR Engineering stand out?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Quintero, we went through a review process. We first had the 5 firms submit proposals to us, and then we went through a review process with a panel, both in-house and with outside folks who reviewed that and ranked them. And then also, once those rankings were done, we took a short list of the top 2 firms and discussed cost with them. HDR has extensive experience in this. All the firms were very good. Let me point that out. These were all very good firms who have experience in this particular area. They've worked with a number of agencies. Some have worked with the City of LA, some have worked with the County of Los Angeles, some have worked across the country on these. And we just felt that when HDR came in and made their proposal, they best captured the needs of Glendale, that we have been working with the county, but we were not married to anything that the county was doing. We felt there was a different way that was in the best interest of the city. That's the way we wanted to go. And that's how they presented it to us. They came to us with, we're going to make this a Glendale review and a Glendale option, not necessarily a canned option that some other agency is adopting. Certainly we can look, and we always will, look at the opportunities to partner with our neighbors, but at the end of the day, we're going to pursue what is best for the city of Glendale.
Where are they housed?
This will be their Los Angeles office, Mr. Quintero.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Next item, please.
Next item would be oral communications.
Thank you. This is the 3-minute portion of oral communications for items of general public interest. Leon Mayer.
Good evening, Mayor Najarian, members of the council, staff, Mr. Starber. My name is Leon Mayer, and I'm here on behalf of the Friends of the Glendale Library. And we have 2 announcements for events on this coming Thursday and the following Monday at the Central Library Auditorium. And we ordinarily don't have events in December. But these are 2 outstanding events, and we didn't want to pass up the opportunity for those who can work into their schedule these 2 events. The first event is Thursday, December 16th, Master Chef, Certified Baker, Leslie Bilderback. Now, Leslie Bilderback has become the Julia Child of baking, and she has been noted in articles in the New York Times, the San Francisco Chronicle. She's a certified master chef and baker, and she's going to talk about just bread. Everything about bread cookbook is the subject of her lecture, and she's going to teach people how to make their own bread, all sorts of bread. So anybody who has any real interest in baking and you can squeeze this into your schedule Thursday night, please come. It'll be a great event for you to come to. She was on the USA tour team in Paris a few years ago. That just shows you where she's been. She's been on naval ships giving instructions to naval chefs how to take care of our servicemen. Our next event on Monday, the 20th, will be another real treat. Garo Hovhannissian. Now, Garo is a journalist, and he is the son of the first foreign minister of Armenia, and he is the grandson of Richard Hovhannissian, who was the pioneer of Armenian writings and studies in the United States, and also a worldwide authority on the genocide and on the Holocaust. And the name of his book is Family of Shadows, A Century of Murder, Memory, and the Pursuit of the Armenian American Dream. and that will be 7 o'clock Monday. Please come if you can make it. You can validate your parking for 3 hours. You park at the exchange over on Maryland. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't have any other cards for this portion of oral communications. Let's move on to the next item.
Number 7, adoption of ordinances. 7A is ordinance adopting General Plan Amendment 2010-004, amending Chapter 5, Section 5 of the Downtown Specific Plan regarding the urban art requirements in the city of Glendale. This was offered on December 7, 2010 by Councilmember Draymond.
Mr. Draymond.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move the item at 7A.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Carroll, Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Next item.
7B is an ordinance adding Chapter 30.37, including 30.37010, 30.37.020, 30.37030, 30.37.040, also same .050, 060, 080, and 090 to Title 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code 1995 relating to urban art. This was also offered on December 12, 2010, December 7, 2010 by Councilmember Draymond.
Mr. Draymond.
Mr. Mayor, I'll also move 7B and 7B1.
7B1 is
only,
the
I'm
resolution
told.
adopting the urban art program guidelines for Glendale Urban Art Program.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Draymond.
Yes.
Friedman.
Yes.
Carroll. Weaver.
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes.
Thank you.
7B1. Mr. Draymond.
Yes, I will move 7B1.
Second again.
Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Draymond.
Yes.
Friedman.
Yes.
Carroll. Weaver.
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Next item.
Under action items, at 8A is Director of Administrative Services Finance regarding comprehensive annual financial report of the City of Glendale for June 30th, 2010. At 8A1 is a motion accepting the comprehensive annual financial report, also known as the CAFR, and at 8A2 is a motion accepting the management letter and the single audit report.
So this is the famous CAFR
Is it
that we've been
unqualified?
waiting for. We've been waiting all year for this. Mr. Starbird.
Yes, I'm looking to see if Mr. Elliott's going to light here so he can give you the report.
Is it unqualified?
Unadulterated.
Oh, that too.
It's PG rated.
PG rated.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, tonight we're presenting the 2009-10 annual comprehensive annual financial report. Wanted to go into a little bit of the structure of the report. We'll do that in an overview. Eventually I'll introduce Jeff Altshuler and Peter George, manager and director of McGladrey and Pullen, your annual auditors. I'll present the management letter and discuss some of the findings there, as well as the single audit report, and then we can take any questions. Just to briefly review the structure of the CAFR, which is over 200 pages, and I'm sure you all had great interest in reading it cover to cover. It is a large document. It's very much a less detailed, more summary at the beginning. There's a section, first starts off with the transmittal letter, basically kind of an overview, and then it has our organizational chart, city officials. Then it goes into the financial section, and then it has your independent audit report and opinion. And that's the part where the auditors give their opinion on our financial statements, our structure, our books, our internal controls, and give us a unqualified, qualified, adverse, or disclaimed opinion, as we discussed this afternoon. Within that section is the management's discussion and analysis. In short, that's an executive summary of the highlights of the CAFR, and includes all the different funds, the governmental type funds, which includes the general fund, and the business type funds, which include our enterprise funds, primarily Glendale Water and Power, refuse, sewer, and so on. Also includes all our bond ratings, all our debt issues, and has a lot of information. From that, we then go down to the government-wide statements. And to kind of have an analogy, it's like a consolidated statement from a company. It's what's known in government accounting speak as the entity-wide level. It's basically, if we put everything together on an accrual basis within the city, you get the entity-wide level statement. We'll go into the detail of that in a minute. As you get down through the statement, you get down to the more finer details. It shows the general fund on itself at a fund level. It groups different funds depending on their size into major fund levels. Those would include, by definition, the general fund is always a major fund. The redevelopment agency, most of the funds there are major funds, electric, water, and sewer, and so on. Following that section, you then have the notes of the financial, and that has all sorts of information into it. All our accounting disclosures are in there, all our PERS information, our benefit information, our insurance information. Anything financially related to the city is included in those notes to the financials. We then move down into the deeper part of the statement where you have non-major funds. Basically, those are the smaller funds. Gives all the operating information of those funds, balance sheets, and so on and so forth. We then have a portion of the internal service funds, which are, I think we discussed last week, the internal service funds are internal mechanisms for allocating costs such as an insurance, workers' compensation, and medical benefits and the like. There's a number of internal service funds, and that information is included there. At the back, we then have the statistical section, which is 21 schedules of information that include everything from property tax information, financial data for the last 9 years. It has direct and overlapping debt, largest employers in Glendale, and a host of other operating indicators, all pertaining to the city operations. So what happened in 2009-2010? At the entity-wide level, statement of net assets basically is a balance sheet where we show all our assets in different categories, the governmental activities and the business activities. Again, governmental includes the general fund and all our governmental type funds, which is capital projects, special revenue funds, debt service funds. The business activities, again, are the enterprise funds, which include primarily water and power, sewer, and refuse. As you can see, at the end of June 30th, we had $2.1 billion in assets and $526 million in liabilities for net assets of $1.6 billion. This is, again, entity-wide, the entire city combined. Exhibit A2 in the statement is commonly known as the statement of activity. For most people, would be an income statement. It's broken down again by governmental and business type activities, and it's a little backwards in my opinion, but that's what our GASB members like it to be, Governmental Accounting Standards Board. It shows we have the expenditures of all our governmental activities and all the business activities for total expenditures of $570 million. To support those activities, we had charges for services, taxes, interest, so on and so forth, in a total of $316 million. Business activities were a little off this year with $256 million in expenditures, $255 million in revenues, for total revenues of $571 million against $570 million in expenditures, for a net increase in net assets, again, citywide, and that gets us down to the $1.6 billion net asset total. We covered the operations, specific operations for the general fund last week, so I won't go back into that. But you recall, just as a reminder, we did have a slight deficit last year, and that is, again, reported within the comprehensive annual financial statement. Management letter, which the auditors issue to us, is basically the report card to us telling you what, if there are issues with the city in terms of financial reporting, internal controls, and the like. And I'll have Jeff come up and speak to those or answer any questions you may have. There's basically 3 different levels of things that they can report on to us. Material weaknesses, which are the most egregious, which he can go into the details what will qualify as a material weakness. There's the next level down is a control deficiency, and then finally a lesser category is just suggestions for best practices, what they recommend. On control deficiencies, they noted one that we had a computer glitch in our workers' compensation system that missed some data for our actuarial report. We have since corrected that, but it was an item that they noted for our correction. They then again noted, as they did last year, of the deficits within our internal service funds, and we've discussed those throughout the budget, and we've mentioned those again last week. They did improve slightly this past year, although several funds have fairly large deficits, which are noted in the management letter. 4 funds total about $32 million net deficits, the largest being the workers' compensation fund. Our response to that, in terms of our corrective action, is over the next 5 years we will attempt through our budgeting process to raise sufficient revenues to get those funds into shape where they don't show a deficit as they do now. Lastly, every year we have a single audit. If you recall, is what the auditors do is come in and do a review of all the entire grant activity within the city, all the grants that we get from Homeland Security, ARA grants, you name it. They have to come in and review all those and then file a report with the federal government. Years ago, before the single audit was passed, each government agency used to send in their own auditors, which became very, very cumbersome, so they decided to make it a single audit under one umbrella and let the annual auditors do that through a long compliance checklist. They follow the Office of Management and Budget Circular 133 as their guidelines to do that. That is our list of federal grants are totaling about $55 million for last year. They go through and audit all those different grants. They select a number of them to test, and then they give their opinion on there. There was one observation, and it was referenced in the management letter, of our untimely reconciliation or bank reconciliations performed in the Treasurer's office. We have met with them. They are on track to try and get that issue resolved to meet the deadline of 30 days to have the bank reconciliations. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions and invite Jeff to the podium for any further discussion if you so desire.
Okay, are there any cards on this item? Well, let me ask a few questions. I mean, throughout the year, I've heard some references to the CAFR and some criticisms, various levels of merit. I'm just trying to replay those in my mind, as I tried to.
As long as you replay them only in your mind.
But why has it taken so long? I remember that was an issue. Our fiscal year ended 5 months ago. Why so long to get this out?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it takes us about 2 months to get prepared for the auditors to come in. They typically come in right after Labor Day. They are here for a good 2 solid months with a crew of 5 or 6 folks at any given time. Bear in mind, we have over 60 funds. That's like auditing 60 different businesses at any one time and then putting it all together and consolidating into the financial statement. It is a long, long process. They spend, and you could probably tell me better, thousands of hours going through our books. They go out and meet with all various departments. It's a long, arduous process, and I can tell you, in the 20-plus years I've been doing this, one time have I had the CAFR done before Thanksgiving. It's just a time-intensive process. The review alone takes several weeks, not only from us, but from their side, that they have to go through all the hoops to get the CAFR issued. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Why do we keep switching auditors? Aren't we actually hunting and shopping for the auditor that's going to give us a clean bill of health?
Actually, our audit selection is done by the audit committee. McGladrien is in their third year of a 5-year contract. It's typical and common practice to RFP after a given time, 5 years being very common, and that process is all overseen by the audit committee. And it's not uncommon to keep auditors, but it's also good practice to rotate auditors as well.
Let me add to that. It brings in fresh eyes, independence, auditors who may, over the course of years, become comfortable, may be less aware of issues. Fresh auditors come in with fresh eyes, new relationships, and can have a fresher perspective. And frankly, I think a little more objectivity. I can't say it's common practice. It's recommended best practices to change external auditors periodically.
Okay. Just a few more before my colleagues kill me. I know it was painful enough hearing it the first time.
No, the first 70 times.
If there were irregular, and we've all heard about the city of Bell in the news, if the city of Glendale had such type of irregularities, would such irregularities be noted in such an audit report as we have before us?
Absolutely. They're given a few assumptions. And I'm not going to speak to the city of Bell. However, if you have total collusion, as one can assume happened in Bell, it would be kind of difficult for auditors to detect that. However, not being the case here, there is a good chance if there are irregularities through their testing. Now, they don't go through and verify every financial transaction record, but they do a huge amount of testing of our documents, our controls, and any results that they feel are inappropriate or material deficiencies, that comes to you in part in the management letter.
Is this the best format, the actual way this report is put together? Is this the best format that we can come up with to get the information to the public?
Is it the best? I wouldn't say it's the best. It's what's prescribed by GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association. It follows very closely what's known as the Blue Book, which is the, for lack of a better description, the Bible on governmental accounting. There is a sample CAFR in the back. Most cities follow it. It's a very tried and true format. There's room for very little variation. We do get a little free form in the transmittal letter where we include some graphs and other things. But the management's discussion and analysis, the statements are in a format that we need to follow to comply with the guidelines.
Let me note, Mr. Mayor, if I can, that it is full disclosure as opposed to summarizing numbers, and as a result maybe not being able to get detail that somebody might want, and it is on the city's website. So you can access all this information. You want to see actual revenues, actual expenditures, by department, by operation, by fund. It's all in the CAFR, and you can find it. So the risk you run with some summarizations is it may be summarized and people then can't dig out the detail they want. This may be more information than most people would like, but you can't say that the information isn't available. It's there and it's on the website.
I just want to let those who often criticize the CAFR, the process, the management, let them know that even without their presence, these questions that they have raised, to the extent I can remember them, are brought forward today, even without them being present, to put them out there for some explanation. So I think that goes far enough.
If I may,
Mr. Mulhill, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you.
Okay, let that also be on the record that we invited Mr. Mulhill to comment.
I think I will.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, one other thing I neglected to mention is the CAFR has gotten the GFOA Award for Financial Excellence for 15 straight years. There was some mention, some comment about that being, basically mail in a check and get the award. It's a 77-page checklist that we have to go through, and this is really, really arduous to get through this, and then you submit it to the program, and they judge your financial statement, whether it meets those guidelines or not. So some light was made of this, and it was a joke, and I can assure you it is not.
I appreciate your spirit of openness in resurrecting some of the criticisms that we've had. Comments?
Well, I just want to say, so was it unqualified success?
Again, yes.
Glad to hear. I've learned a new term.
Also known as a clean opinion.
And we are working on those items that were raised that go beyond the level of material, not weakness, material.
Yes, the actuarial data has already been corrected. We're working with the city treasurer's office to get the bank reconciliations done on a timely basis, and we will work the best we can to get the internal service funds out of their deficit position. That will be a struggle, however.
Not? Second?
Second.
Roll call, please. Mo, we invited you.
You just asked me.
I understand, but don't feel compelled upon my request.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like,
We have a motion.
And a second.
yes, but Mr. Mohill was not here to hear anything that has been said in the last 15 minutes on this subject. So I hope you are, I mean, I don't know what you're going to say, but you have not heard the reports.
Although that's not the litmus test to.
And he may have read them. Reports.
It's my inclination to
I don't-
proceed with the
it's
vote
not that,
unless
but
my
before I
colleagues.
vote on the issue, I hear the report.
We have a motion on the floor.
We do. We have a motion and a second with no objection to calling the question.
I'm sorry, and
We'll take roll.
for the record, who made the motion, who was the second?
I did. Oh, you
Quintero.
did? Okay, we tied.
Quintero Draymond.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mohill.
It's okay.
You can address us during public comment.
Council
Thank you for your
members,
understanding.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Greenman,
Yes.
Quintero, Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Thank you. Next item.
Next item at 8B is City Manager regarding consideration of contract renewal for professional federal strategic planning, legislative representation, intergovernmental liaison, and political analysis services. B1 is motion authorizing renewal of city's federal lobbyist contract with the firm of Ferguson Group for an 18-month term with no increase in the monthly retainer fees for an amount not to exceed $93,000. At B2 is a resolution appropriating $46,500.
Thank you. Mr. Starbird.
Yes, I'll go to John Toctalian for the staff report. John? I believe Mr. Miller's in the audience. You might come up here, too. Come to the dais, but get closer.
Good evening, Mayor Najarian, members of the City Council. The City currently contracts the firm of the Ferguson Group for federal legislative advocacy services. The current agreement was initially approved in January of 2010 for a one-year period. Pursuant to Council's previous direction, this contract is annually brought to your attention for reauthorization. Over the last year, the Ferguson Group has assisted staff in providing guidance on matters related to federal affairs, as well as conducted research on a variety of issues, including projects related to veterans housing, as well as Federal Communication Commission-related issues. During this time, the city has benefited from their established network with elected and appointed federal officials, as well as their relationship with other federal agencies. In March of 2010, the Ferguson Group planned, organized, and scheduled a trip to Washington, D.C., where the city's delegation met with the offices of Congressman Adam Schiff and Henry Waxman, Senators Dianne Feinstein and Barbara Boxer, as well as staff from the Office of Wastewater Management, Federal Railroad Administration, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Primary purpose of this trip was to discuss the city's 2011 federal appropriation requests, as well as begin laying the framework for potentially competing for federal water and rail safety grants. This time, staff is seeking the City Council's approval to renew the city's contract with the firm of the Ferguson Group, as well as authorize a resolution of appropriation. The total term of the proposed contract is for 18 months. The additional 6-month period is intended to align the Ferguson Group's contract with the city's fiscal year budgeting cycle, which would make it a bit easier for staff to plan for these annual expenditures. We have Mike Miller here from the Ferguson Group in case there are any questions by the members of the City Council.
When was that delegation that you...
March of 2010.
Do we have one planned in the upcoming coming few months?
We don't have one planned yet, but we anticipate that once we bring forward a list of the appropriation projects to the City Council within the next month and a half or so, we will plan one out sometime probably in February or March, somewhere around the same timeline.
Why don't we invite Mr. Miller?
Ask him how the weather in Washington is.
Come on up, and, you know, obviously, it's more of a general question to you. We've had a huge shift in the House of Representatives from one party to the next. Although our congressional delegation in California has remained fairly stable, do you see any opportunities or challenges in that change of the makeup in terms of some of the issues that we've expressed interest in to pursue?
Well, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here tonight. And before I answer your question, I would like to say it's been our pleasure to represent the city, and we've enjoyed working with you folks and your staff. It's been a real pleasure working with the city. As far as looking into next year, there are a lot of changes that are going on, and quite frankly, it's very difficult to see how where Congress is going to go in the next year or 18 months or 2 years. We're still in the midst of the final week, in all likelihood, of the current Congress, and there are two big bills that are likely to come up within the next 24 hours, the tax bill as well as the annual appropriations bill. So we still need to get past that. But even after we see what comes out of those, there are going to be some significant changes. The fact that the city has stability in its congressional delegation, very good members of Congress, senators represent the city. I think that that's a good thing for the city. I think, though, that given the way that Congress is moving towards there seems to be a lot of tension that's likely to continue on into the following Congress. That might translate into us working with the city to find new ways to achieve the city's goals, either policy goals or funding goals. But in terms of whether we can really see sort of specific places where the city's likely to see significant changes, I don't know yet. I'll add one other item, and that is regarding congressional earmarks. There's been a lot of focus on congressional earmarks over the last 12, even 24 months, and even before that. That seems to have come to a head in the November election, but even now we're seeing still an ongoing discussion about how earmarks will or will not be dealt with in the future, and that's one place, I think, where we will potentially see some significant changes in the near term, is how the House and the Senate deal with the earmarking process. And so that might give us some indication where Congress and the administration might be going in the next year, how they deal with the appropriations process, which is going to start gearing up in January, February, and March. But other than that, it's very difficult to look over the horizon right now.
But we used to put a lot of weight on our relationship with Congressman Schiff, being on appropriations and moving up through the ranks. Now, since he's in the minority, we do have a small piece of our city represented by Congressman Dreyer, and he'll be chairman of Rules Committee.
In likelihood, yes.
So, let us know if there's any opportunities that would flow from that position. I mean, I think we're rather fortunate to have at least part of our city represented, Congressman Dreyer. And then, so in the off years, we, go shift from Congressman Schiff to Congressman Dreyer. So please let us know if there's anything any extra advantage that we can obtain over other cities competing for the same, pools of money and same issues, that we can hopefully make good use of his new position. So, questions, Quintero?
No questions. I just want to comment that both the Ferguson Group and Mr. Miller, I think, are doing a great job of representing us, and also more than just representation. I just like the way they approach issues and how they go about conducting their business. I think we've really hit on a winner with this particular group and with Mr. Miller in particular.
Comments? Mr. Draymond?
Well, I'd echo that. I would just add the word continue on both the front end and the back end. Please continue to do the good work you're doing on behalf of the City of Glendale and working with our staff and us. And thank you for continuing to provide us the reports that we get. Those are terrific, and I greatly appreciate that. You do a great job, your firm does, and you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move 8B 1 and 2.
Second.
Flag on the play, excuse me.
As amended?
Yes.
As amended, the monetary amount is...
Oh, yes. So
instead of
someone like to read-
$93,000, it should be $139,500. The original amount in the motion was only for a year. This contract is for 18 months.
So do we need to read that in or just adopt it by reference?
No, you can just, you don't have to read it. You can just adopt it as amended. Instead of $93,000, it'll be $139,500, which represents 18 months, not 12.
Okay, very good. With that motion made by Mr. Weaver, seconded by Mr. Quintero, this is 8B1.
Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes.
That was 1 and 2.
We need to do 2.
I
or
did
that's
1 and 2.
subsumed.
2 is a resolution of appropriation. You do need to appropriate the funds
That
for
was
that
my
additional 6
motion.
months. It was, but it ended up being split into 2.
Okay, then I'll move 8B 2.
Okay.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Draymond. Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. You.
Enjoy the weather here in Southern California while you can.
8C, please.
8C is City Manager regarding support the reopening of the Department of Motor Vehicles Glendale branch. At C1 is a resolution supporting the reopening of the Department of Motor Vehicles Glendale branch.
Mr. Starbird.
Yes, again to John Tucktalion. John?
Good evening once again. On August 20th, 2010, the Glendale Department of Motor Vehicles temporarily closed down for renovations. The anticipated reopening date for that facility was November of 2010. The specific renovations to that facility included the installation of new furniture, new flooring, new paint, repairs to their heating, ventilation, air conditioning system, as well as other miscellaneous upgrades throughout the property. As of current, all the renovations at the Glendale branch have been completed. However, immediately before the reopening date, DMV officials announced the temporary closure of 3 DMV locations within our region. These 3 branches consisted of the Glendale branch, the Hayward branch, as well as the West Covina facility. As of last week, when I spoke to them, they still did not have an anticipated reopening date for those particular facilities. The reason that they cite for the specific closures are a result of budget cuts and the fact that once positions become vacant, they're not filling them on a temporary basis. As a result of these closures, the Glendale DMV employees have been relocated to other regional offices within the area. And specifically with respect to the facility, the DMV officials have indicated that the site will remain closed, and it's anticipated that they would reopen at some point in the near future, and that they don't plan to reuse the facility for any other purpose other than a DMV location. Currently, the Glendale residents who used to use the facility are being routed to other nearby offices, the nearest one being the Lincoln Park branch, which is 10 miles away, followed by the Pasadena, Hollywood, and West Hollywood branches, which are 11, 12, and 13 miles away, respectively. Per the City Council's request, staff has prepared a resolution supporting the timely reopening of the Department of Motor Vehicles Glendale branch for your consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Quintero.
I'm curious, does the state own this property, or is it a long-term lease? Do you know?
Councilmember Quintero, it's our understanding that the state does own that facility.
I mean, how did this happen? Is it because we were shifting between, we had lost our assemblymen and they were going through these special elections and all that other stuff, and they saw the opportunity to do this and not have much, while we were busy selecting an assemblyman, were they taking that opportunity to close our branch.
Mayor Najarian, I can't speak to the specific reason for the particular closure at the time that it closed. However, as the question was posed to them, the response was that they fully anticipated that the facility would reopen following the renovations. They were costly. They were almost $1 million. However, at the time that they were going to reopen it, a week prior, they realized that they did have a significant shortage of staff to maintain the facility at the same standard that it was prior to, as well as all the other facilities that had a shortage of staff. They figured they just dispersed the employees and at a later time come to some kind of
They stuck it to us while we were busy. With a vacant assembly position, and we were busy trying to elect someone. That's all they did. I mean, let's be serious about that. I think we should take those wrecked cars that we've been placing around and put it right in front of their damn building. Symbolic of their ability to drive the state. This is, I think, Councilmember Friedman asked for this resolution. What do you think?
Well, I brought this forward for two main reasons. The first reason is because it's bad enough when the government wastes taxpayer money, but when they waste it in our city, under our noses, I feel like we should do something about it. And to spend almost $1 million renovating a building that they plan on keeping closed, which could be used for, if it's not a DMV, there's all kinds of other things that the government does in buildings. So to me, it's a tremendous waste of taxpayer money to spend that, to have such bad planning as to spend that money and then not use the building. Second, well, I guess there's three reasons. Secondly, is that we're a city of about 210,000 people who now don't have a place to go and renew our driver's licenses, to get our cars registered and all of that. And it was a crowded DMV to begin with, and I'm hearing from people that, and I've had a few emails about this, that it's taking 2 to 3 hours now when they go to Pasadena. Once you get there, I mean, now you have to drive 10, 15 miles to go to another DMV. But then when you get there, you've got a 2 or 3 hour wait because all those people that were coming to Glendale are now going to Pasadena, and mostly Pasadena and then maybe to Lincoln Park. So for our residents, it's a hardship. We're a big enough city that we need to have our own DMV branch. And third, it's now an empty, blighted building in a main thoroughfare of our city, which is ugly, and it's only a matter of time until there's graffiti and people parking their cars and hanging out and all of that, and we're expected now to police an empty building. So I just think that this is something they should take another look at, and I'm hoping this resolution makes them realize that we've noticed, that they didn't sneak it past us, and that this is something that we expect them to deal with. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Draymond.
Well, I agree. Although blighted and ugly it was even when it was operating, but you can take that however you like. But in any case, no, I think for the average, we all get the same emails about it and the same personal contacts from residents of Glendale that are just very upset about this for all the reasons you mentioned. And I think the other additional portion that irritates people is when they hear that the state of California closes a facility, spends $1 million to remodel it, and then realizes, oh, we have a policy that once we close a building, for whatever reason, we don't reopen it. It just has government written all over it. And I think people are fed up with that. Anyway, no, I fully intend to support the resolution. It's just that I think, it's my opinion, I think that what we should be doing is a little stronger than just voting on a resolution. I think we should be actively lobbying our counterparts higher up the food chain in Sacramento. Simply us voting on this, although it is symbolic, certainly, and I fully intend to support it, but I think we should be doing more than this.
And we can.
Mr. Tuchtalian, the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, is that under the umbrella of Dale Bonner's purview, Secretary of Transportation, and
I think now it comes under an even bigger umbrella, which includes housing and everything else. It's a very large agency. I can't recall offhand who the director is.
People here. We've had these people. We've honored them. We've given them plaques.
Take them back.
I'm personally offended at this because they know Glendale. we gave them a very warm reception on whether it's Dale Bonner or Bimla Reinhardt or whoever the particular head of that agency or the group of agencies was.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, my suggestion is let's get a meeting with you, our state senator, our state assembly member, and ask them to begin to go to bat for this community. I happen by coincidence to be meeting tomorrow morning with our state senator's chief of staff on an update meeting, and I'll convey that you'd like to have a meeting with the state senator face-to-face to see if she's going to go to bat to open this office.
Mr. Quintero.
Well, and it's more than Glendale. I mean, where do Burbank residents go?
Yeah.
Where do Atwater residents go? This is there, and of course, La Crescenta, et cetera. So, I mean, this is a regional office.
Can you imagine what the Pasadena office is going to look like on a Monday, which is the busiest day at a DMV office? People from here clear over to West Covina and the San Gabriel Valley will all be going to Pasadena.
Well, yeah.
Mr. Weaver.
Well, I have my own personal opinion, which is entirely different than my colleagues. Probably the closing and the reconstruction of that was put in a state budget 4 or 5 years ago, and between then and now, the state has gone belly up. If anybody is reading the paper about what has happened in Sacramento and what's going to happen, carrying billions of dollars of debt, why in God's green earth does anybody think that Sacramento is going to turn around and staff up and put more people to work when they're talking about cutting health services, education, you name it? This is indeed symbolic. They're not going to open it, in my view, in a long time. And if it was so urgent, where are the people of Burbank? Where's their letter? Where's the people of Pasadena? And to cut down, why aren't they joining in? To me, and it's just me, it's not a debatable thing with my colleagues. I just think it's a waste of time to ask Sacramento to fund up a much-needed motor vehicle department when they're planning to cut billions from all sectors of the state economy because they don't have the revenue. That's realism. So we can complain all we want, talk to state senators, but when Governor Brown starts cutting, look out. We'll lose a lot more than that.
Friedman.
When did the renovations begin?
Renovations began following the August 20th closure, so sometime in October is when they were pretty much in full force.
October of last year.
October of 2010.
So by then, the financial writing was on the wall.
Of course.
So they had plenty of opportunity to not renovate this building and not spend the money.
Correct.
It seems to me, and Mr. Weaver makes some good points, but it seems to me that the DMV is probably one of the few government offices that generates money, generates revenue. And my husband just went to, I don't know, he was doing something with the car registration. I don't pay attention to that. And he went to make a reservation in Pasadena, and the first reservation for an appointment was 3.5 weeks. So that's 3.5 weeks where he was trying to go and give them a check. And he would have liked to give them that check the first few days, but they had to wait that time. So by putting people off, by not having this office open, they're passing up an awful lot of revenue, and I would guess, there's a lot of nodding going on around here from people who know about financial things, that it seemed like 4 employees they had. No, I'm kidding. They must have had probably 15 employees, that their salaries were more than paid for by the revenue that was taken in, because every single person who walks into a DMV branch walks in there with a check. So, to me, it might be one of those things that for the government is more symbolic than it is actually financially prudent. So, at the very least, they should take a look at that.
Any money that comes in is going to some other program. It's not going to come back to roost where we think it is. There's too many deficiencies in state government. Who knows what they do up there? I know they manipulate it.
Well, to me, the debate is a false one anyway. It really doesn't even matter whether Mr. Weaver is right or Ms. Friedman is right. The fact is our constituents are mad as hell, and we represent them. And this is a basic street-level service that we no longer have as the third largest city in the county of Los Angeles. We deserve, at the very least, we deserve informed answers on this. It may be that you're right, Mr. Weaver. It may be that you're right, Councilmember Friedman. But the fact of the matter is we deserve some answers. And The people at the state level are the people that made this decision. So I don't think it hurts anything to ask our representatives at the state level to give us an answer on the record, let them know about our displeasure, our residents' displeasure, and wind them up and send them off to go do their job, just as our residents demand that we do ours. And,
Well, I'm just at a disadvantage because I've received one email total on this subject, one. So I'm at a great disadvantage. My colleagues get the emails, I'm not. So what can I say?
We can spam filter you got, Mr. Weir.
We'll have to do something.
It's not the first time that I'm not getting emails. My colleagues are. So what
And it's not
can I
just the
say?
emails, it's the personal contacts, it's the people that have come to
I've
the
had no
podium.
personal contacts.
It's the people that have come to the podium here and have asked. So, anyway.
Okay, so we have before us a resolution.
But, excuse me, one more moment,
Yes.
Mr. I wanted to just finish that. Mr. Mayor, when you have this meeting, assuming you have this meeting with our state representatives, I think it is incumbent upon our mayor to let them know that you will be reporting back in a public forum as to what their response is and characterizing it accurately.
I will be sure to point that out where they want to. One of the comments I always make is that it is us, the very local officials, that are most in tune and are most often contacted with complaints and criticisms. And as you go higher up the elected ladder, you seem to get a little bit of distance and lose some of the fervor and the zeal with which issues are initially raised. So I will be sure to remind them that I will be reporting to the council and to the public as to what their responses are.
Thank you.
This resolution sufficient? Are we happy with the general language here? Want to get?
No.
No.
They'll get the point.
Okay, maybe we'll do that in person.
We're relying on you, Mr. Mayor, to
Okay, so
drive the point home.
in terms of our written word will be professional and dated on 8C1. So this is a resolution adopting the resolution supporting the reopening of the DM branch. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I was just giving the person who requested it an opportunity, but I'll second it. And
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond,
yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Quintero. Yes. Weaver.
Symbolically, yes.
Thank you.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes.
For the record, a symbolic yes is as good as an actual yes.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
For the record, a symbolic yes is still recorded as a
I understand
bona
that.
fide yes.
I understand that.
Next
But
item,
the video's got it.
Next on 8D is the General Manager of Glendale Water and Power regarding La Paz Solar Tower Sales Agreement with the Southern California Public Power Authority. And at D1 is an ordinance for introduction approving the La Paz Solar Tower Project Sales Agreement.
Tiger.
Mayor Najarian, members of the Glendale City Council, we come before you tonight to request approval of a power purchase agreement through the Southern California Public Power Authority with the La Paz Solar Project. As you are well aware, GWP has aggressively and successfully pursued a number of renewable energy projects over the past few years as an offset to our carbon emissions. Tonight we come before you with our first significant involvement with a solar project. And because it's our first involvement, and also because the project itself is somewhat unique, we would like to take a few minutes to give you an overall presentation with some pictures and some data on what's involved with this project. And to do that, I'd like to ask our Assistant General Manager of Power Supply, Steve Lins, to give this presentation.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Steve Lenz, Assistant General Manager of Supply for Glendale Water and Power. Once again, today I'm here to discuss our first utility-scale solar project. We have some local solar on various roofs around the city, but we've yet to have a utility-scale solar project. It is the La Paz Solar Tower, developed by EnviroMission. And as Mr. Steiger mentioned, this is part of our effort to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to below 1990 levels by 2020 and to meet our renewable energy mandates. This is a rendering of the project, and it is different than any other GWP renewable energy project. This tower in the middle of the rendering is 2,400 feet high. For perspective, the Empire State Building is only 1,453 feet high, and the tallest building in the world in Dubai is 2,700 feet high, so it's 300 feet short of the tallest building in the world. That collector that you see around the bottom is a circle that has a diameter of about 2 miles. The next slide shows you basically how it works. It's a simple concept. The collector on the bottom heats up. It's got special ceramic material that heats up and collects the heat. And then that hot air just rises up through that tower. And on its way up the tower, it passes through 32 GE turbines. So that's the concept. The next slide details some of the project. It's a 200 megawatt project. It's in La Paz County in Arizona. SCAPA participants have banded together to take on 103 megawatts of the 200, so we will have a controlling interest in the project. Glendale's participation is 12 megawatts of that total. We expect the capacity factor to be 63%, which is really quite high. You may recall some of our wind projects. The capacity factor on the wind is somewhere in the high 20s to low 30s. And part of the reason it's so high is that the ceramic material captures that heat and can maintain and hold some of that heat even after the sun goes down. So that during summer days, you can get generation out of this facility for 14 to 16 hours in a day, and then in the winter it goes down to 8. This works out to about 66,225 megawatt hours for Glendale over the year, which is about 6% of our system needs. So therefore, it's 6% of our renewable portfolio standard as well. This is a power purchase agreement. At this point, we're not buying the project. A little bit later, I'll talk a little bit about the technology. It's still somewhat experimental. But it's a 30-year power purchase agreement with an option to buy the project in year 10. Glendale will pay about $6.6 million a year for the energy, and over the life of the project, which is 30 years, $198 million. If you levelize that over the entire 30-year period, it's about $99.50 per megawatt hour. The renewable projects that we've brought to you in the last year are somewhere in the range of $85 to $110 per megawatt hour. So it is competitive, and it's much more competitive than most of the photovoltaic solar that we're seeing, which is sometimes over $160 up to $200 per megawatt hour. The power is going to be delivered to an existing delivery point at Marketplace in Nevada, and the target commercial operation date is June 2014. So just so you understand, this is a 30-year power purchase agreement. We wouldn't start taking power until 2014, and it's important to understand, you see the technology, it's a tower that's 2,400 feet high. There are some skeptics out there. They have built a demonstration project in Spain that was a little over 600 feet high and was 50 kilowatts instead of 200 megawatts. But this is why we're doing a power purchase agreement. We only pay for the energy that we get. And if they don't perform by certain milestones, they're even going to be paying us liquidated damages, so that really we don't have anything at risk. So finally, just to kind of give you an update on where we are with our renewable energy. As of today, with Hoover, which is about 5% renewable of our renewable portfolio standard, we're at 24% already. Next slide. With La Paz, which is another 6%, we would be up at 30% in 2015. The existing California Air Resource Board Renewable Electricity Standard, which was adopted in September, has 3 tiers, or actually 4 tiers. We have to meet a 20% standard in 12, 13, and 14, a 24% standard in 15, 16, and 17, a 28% standard in 18 and 19, and then 33% in 2020 and thereafter. Just last week, there was a Senate bill introduced, Senate Bill 23, introduced in California. If passed, we presume that it's going to be a 33% renewable portfolio standard. We also anticipate that they will attempt to exclude Hoover. We've had a big victory at the Air Resources Board getting that large hydro included and allowing us to count Hoover. And they actually only allowed folks to count Hoover who were counting it all along, and we were one of the few that were doing that. So we will be working with all of our industry groups to try to make sure they keep large hydro in this bill. We'll see how that goes. So that's the project, and we're requesting that you introduce the ordinance that allows us to enter a power sales agreement with SCAPA and buy into the La Paz Solar Tower project. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, this is intriguing. Of course, we'll have to let aircraft know where that thing's sticking up in the air, some lights or something. But, read about the different kinds of solar panel systems they're putting out in the desert, where they've had to clear miles of endangered species, turtles, etc., out so they can fence this immense area to put it up. Whereas this, theoretically, only takes a 2-mile diameter area, right? A lot less.
Correct.
So if these work, I could see them multiplying all over open desert land areas where they have sun most of the time, right?
Yes, and if it works, I think they're planning on putting several more in this area. I've been told that they're dealing with the environmental issues on this particular project. I'm not sure if we know to what extent they've looked at the environmental issues on other proposed projects. Jack, do you have any?
Oh, the solar, I've read
I'm sorry,
papers
yes,
about that.
they're working on an environmental impact report now.
On this?
On this and expanding it to other projects in the area.
Well, you know the ones I'm talking about where they have the old type solar panels, the one we have
Yes.
now.
Right.
Yes.
How's the acreage compare in those farms as compared to this one, which is only 2 mile? Is it larger, the same, or?
I think the biggest farm is the Edison farm out in Daggett and Barstow area. It's one of the biggest I know of, and it's extremely large. I think it's much bigger than this.
About how many acres would you
Gosh,
say?
I couldn't tell you.
More than this. That's what I'm saying, in terms of affecting the public and the endangered species, etc. The environmental document would be much more favorable to something like this in the future than the big farms that Edison's building, right?
This is solar thermal, and it is, at this point, more competitive and more efficient than photovoltaic.
And that too.
Although photovoltaic is coming down, so they all have their environmental issues in terms of coverage, because whichever one you look at, they're both large areas of desert that they're covering with the projects.
I'd hate to be putting the last finishes on that tower up there. Care to be up there.
Ms. Friedman, then Mr. Quintero.
Who is building this, and when do they expect to break ground and be completed?
The company is Enviromission. The target commercial operation date is June 2014. They're expecting to get a permit October 2011, interconnect in 2012, start construction July 2012, and then complete 2 years later.
Are they going to have any transmission issues? I mean, do they have to put wires where there aren't wires in the California desert where they might run into the same problems that Mr. Weaver was talking about?
I know as far as we're concerned, they're connecting up to an existing connection point. However, Jack Dolan, who's the new Integrated Resources Administrator, might be able to tell us about the line that goes from the project to the grid.
Yeah, my understanding is that they are working on a right-of-way or have completed a right-of-way to build transmission. I don't remember exactly how far it is from their substation where the facility is to the existing station. I don't believe it's too far, and they have made arrangements to build transmission to the existing substation that we have rights to, the Marketplace substation.
Okay. And there's no advance, it's pay on delivery?
Yes. Yes, we only pay for the energy that we get delivered, and there are provisions in the contract that will reimburse us if this project does not work.
And so far, SCAP has paid about $100,000 of development costs, and that's for consultants and attorneys, and we paid about 6% of that, so $6,000. And they anticipate the total development cost through SCAPA to be about $150,000. But if they pull out of this project at numerous points, we will recoup that money and more.
And then what are the rates competitive that we'll be paying for this power? I'm assuming it's more expensive than the non-renewables, but...
Yeah, the levelized rate is it's $99.50, so about $100 per megawatt hour. Some of the recent projects we brought have ranged from $85 a megawatt hour up to $110 a megawatt hour for wind and hydro, so it's very competitive and in the range of the competitive projects that SCAP is reviewing.
Okay.
And much more competitive than any of the solar projects we've seen, most of the photovoltaic projects.
Sounds good.
Sarah.
I was just going to say, I would assume that they would locate this site as close to existing power as they can to cut down on the cost of the transmission lines they'd have to build.
That was one of the factors that they used when they determined this site.
Yeah, looking at a map, it looks like it's about 30 miles south of Parker Dam, Lake Havasu area. So the main substation where we connect is a little bit above that near Las Vegas, so it's actually not too far of a run up to the substation.
Mr. Quintero.
Well, I support the project. I mean, the technology, it's been used in Spain for over 8 years, so it's nothing that new. But I do think it's a great concept. I'm very happy they're using the General Electric turbines. Tell me more about EnviroMission. I'm just curious. I mean, is this a subsidiary of a larger company, or what do you know about it?
I don't. I know it's an Australian company, Jack, if you could...
Yeah, they're based in Australia. They have a U.S. division, EnviroMissions USA. I believe this is their first U.S. project of this scale. They do have a number of renewable projects in Australia and in Europe. They're a worldwide company, so they're...
Yeah, very good. No, I'm sure they know what they're doing, and we can't lose. Hopefully it's going to go quickly, it'll get built and online, and we participate. So.
And we're getting pretty close to meeting our mandates, and in addition to the 30% RPS that this will be, you'll recall we've got another 6.6% of options, wind options, that we signed on with LA that we can use to scale in and use whatever resource is most efficient as we need it.
Okay, Mr. Lind. I'm a ratepayer in Glendale. All I want is cheap electricity. I want cheap rates. My rates are too high. Which of those pieces of pie do I want to encourage the council to go for? I want low rates. My rates are too high. We've got some of the highest rates in the state.
Well, you can't do that.
You want low rates and you want to comply with the law, right?
Are we cheaper? I mean, is coal cheaper?
Coal's cheaper. Coal's about
dirty burning coal.
Coal's, I'll round it to round numbers. It's about $50 a megawatt hour, so it's about 5 cents. This is about twice as much.
So we could get a lot cheaper electricity if we invested in burning coal.
Well, right now, we don't have cap and trade, and we don't have a price on carbon yet. But at some point, there's going to be cap and trade, and there's going to be a charge on carbon. Folks have said that the estimates for that charge on carbon run anywhere from $10, kind of the most reasonable range is $10 to $50, but it can go up as high as $150. So it may be that ultimately, when cap and trade is put in place and they put a price on carbon, that it will equalize the price between the coal and the renewables. We don't know, but that's...
Not there yet. It's not there yet, but a proposed...
Right.
The proposal.
Right, we're not there yet. But we do know it's coming, that there will be some charge on carbon. And in addition, as I mentioned, we've got mandates, two big ones. One is AB 32, which says that we have to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to 1990 levels by 2020. And The second one is the CARB regulation, which is is the renewable electricity standard, which is part of that effort to reduce our carbon to 1990 levels. So at some point, we've got to bring our emissions down, and one of the best ways to do that is to scale in renewables and reduce our market purchases of dirty power. And hopefully, we are looking at strategies for getting out of some of our coal projects. Our current IPP project, the term goes through 2027, and the participants are looking at alternatives for putting other resources on that site that will not be as emission heavy as coal.
Right. So I guess my point is that when you give us recommendations and when council makes decisions, we are not solely looking at what is going to provide the residents the absolute cheapest source of electricity. Cheap also means dirty, violating AB 32, CARB rules, etc. So by going into these other renewables, we're paying a little bit more. This particular project is more efficient on the scale of the renewables, but we're committing to do that.
Correct.
You're proposing that we commit to do that.
Right.
We would be up to 30%?
Yeah, in 2014, if it's operational.
And are there any other cities? I mean, L.A., I just heard, is having problems, that their budget issues is, although their mayor announced an ambitious plan to get to 35%, that they're falling down quite short of that target. Do you have any info on that? Or
I don't know where they specifically are. I know that we're pretty much further ahead than most of the other SCAPA cities in meeting our targets.
I mean, I think we're surpassing them, and at the same time providing a stable and steady source of power to our customers. So I applaud you and your department, Mr. Steiger, and Mr. Dolan and everyone that's doing their best to balance reliability as well as environmental.
Thank you.
One, I think, important point to note is because we're already at 24%, much of the costs associated with renewables that we've talked about here are already embedded in our existing costs, which is a plus. It's a benefit to us, so that when we look at future projects, we're not looking at an increment that's all that large to get to where we need to be. So cost-wise, while renewables are more than non-renewables, much of our investment is already made, and I think it's very important. And so that's one of the benefits of being where we are in terms of our overall percentage.
I do not have any cards on this item. Are there any last?
I'm ready to introduce
pass on the
the
back that
ordinance.
we'd like to give ourselves?
Had to introduce the ordinance.
Minor amendments.
Yes.
I think that's about been covered.
I'll introduce the ordinance at
I just
AD1.
did.
And I will suggest to introduce it as amended. There's a couple of minor changes. One is to add the city of Banning in the fourth recital, and the other is to reflect the 103 megawatts that this project will produce instead of 101 that's on page 2. Just some minor changes, and those will be reflected in the ordinance when it comes back to you January 4th in its final form.
Okay, so co-introduced by Weaver and Quintero.
I will fight over it when it comes back next year.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
At 8E is City Attorney regarding amendments to the city's Conflict of Interest Code. E1 is a motion approving amended Conflict of Interest Code.
Mr. Howard?
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, every 2 years, state law requires that we provide both a report and then follow it up with any amendments to our local conflicts of interest code. The amendments before you this year, because this is an even-numbered year, reflect 7 positions. These are not new positions that have been created, new salaried positions, so there's additional money. These are new positions that are now required by virtue of their job duties, whether they vote, negotiate contracts, or do other things where they now fall within the 4 corners of our local conflicts of interest code, and they have to report interests of real estate interests, sources of incomes, and gifts. These 7 new positions, a couple of them are reclassifications, and others, I think there's couple of them are actually new classifications, a couple are reclassified. There's also deletion of a few positions. It now folds them into our local conflict of interest code.
Thank you. I don't have any cards on that item. Is there any discussion?
I'll move 8E1.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Next item, please.
9, under hearings at 9A is Director of Community Redevelopment and Housing regarding confirm the intention to levy and collect assessments in the Adams Square Business Improvement District for the calendar year 2011. Based on the annual report, at 9A1 is a resolution confirming the intention to levy and collect assessments within the Adams Square Business Improvement District through 2011. And 9A2 is a motion extending the terms of the management agreement with the Adams Square Merchants Association for the calendar year 2011.
Hey, Mr. Hagani. Is that you? I still can't see department straight. Director of Community Redevelopment and Housing.
It's going to be, we have Jackie
Bartlow.
here, from Jackie Bartlow.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Today we don't have anyone here from the Adams Square Merchants Association. 2 weeks ago, they were here requesting that you approve their budget for the 2011 fiscal year or calendar year, as well as adopt a resolution of intent to consider for levying assessments for the 2011 calendar year. As part of this Business Improvement District renewal process, they needed to come back today to request that you hold a public hearing, that open it up to the public to make comment on the renewal process. Also to adopt a resolution for confirmation, as well as then extend the management agreement for another year.
Okay, I will open the public hearing. Do we have any cards, Mr.?
No.
Don't have any cards. I will close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Weaver.
there's no questions. I'll move 9A1 and 2.
Second that.
Bartlow?
I'm here to answer any questions you may have since...
We already moved it to seconded.
Oh, I see you had questions.
Okay, and if there are no questions, has been moved and seconded. Let's take roll call, please.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes.
That brings us back to oral communications, the 5-minute portion. This is where discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to a speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. City manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for an investigation and a report.
Thank you. The first speaker is Al Hoffman, followed by Bill Weissman.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and staff. Al Hoffman. I'd like to have Jennifer Pinkerton's card. We're presenting a little film clip. This is a follow-up to the November 16th meeting when the people from over in the Grand Central Homeowners Neighborhood Association came here to talk about the Disney Child Care Center, and that's what this is about. And we brought the DVD down, and we think it works. So Jennifer will speak to that if you have her card there.
I do have her card.
Then I'll follow her up.
Okay, so I'll call
All one and the same.
Mr. Weissman will cede.
If we can get the thing going.
So either Ms.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Pinkerton or Mr. Hoffman.
Already.
Okay, this was tested this afternoon, but I'm not sure about the volume control. It may have been adjusted since then, so bear with me, but here we go.
Today is the worst shaking we've had so far on this construction. Since 7 o'clock, feels like my house is shaking apart. This is my house. Welcome to it. "7:44 a.m. Thursday, February 19th.
That's it on the video.
Oh, there should be some still photos after that.
They're not a part of the video. I can certainly show those.
These are photos from 4 homes on Truett Street, and this shows the cracks that resulted from the construction at the Disney Child Care Center. I assure all of you these cracks are new and occurred subsequent to the construction. Those were not old cracks.
That is it.
Okay, yeah, I think that's plenty. Thank you. I apologize. We don't have any footage of the compactors. This was footage of what are informally called scrapers when they were moving soil around at the site, but we didn't. These also shook our homes violently, so we did want to bring in the video. I have a second comment regarding parking. Should I speak to that later?
No.
Go ahead.
You're up here.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to return. I'll be very brief. The city now has a blanket policy regarding how street parking is zoned. On the south side of Truett, which is aligned by 9 homes, it's zoned residential, and we currently have a 2-hour parking limit. The north side of Truett is zoned commercial with a 72-hour parking limit. It's zoned commercial because the Disney Child Care Center is next to the north side of the street, even though the Child Care Center does not open onto Truett Street in any way. There's not a walk gate, a drive gate. There is no opening whatsoever from that building onto Truett. The 3 buildings that were on that site prior to construction of the Child Care Center had no access to Truett either. But because there is a commercial building on that side, it's zoned commercial with a 72-hour limit. We're here to ask you to reconsider applying your policy on a case-by-case, site-specific basis rather than a blanket basis. The reason for this is that Truett is a very narrow street. Most homes have multiple cars. Disney employees take most of the parking on the north side of the street on a daily basis, and many of them park in the adjacent residential streets, despite the fact that Disney recently opened a very large employee parking lot on Flower Street that has shuttle service to all of the Disney buildings in the immediate vicinity. In addition, we have problems with Disney vendors parking on Truett. A few weeks ago, many of us were jarred awake early in the morning, went outside to find a very large roll-off parked on Truett Street, an 18-foot stake bed, a pickup truck with a generator, and a small front loader parked on Truett Street by a private company under contract to Disney that was doing tree trimming work in a building a block further north. This isn't the first time that Disney vendors have parked on the street. And the problem is we're getting conflicting information from Disney and the parking admin office. Disney said they would abide by whatever the city could offer us, and that the city parking admin office was vetting different possibilities. The parking admin office, however, told us that Disney wants to retain parking options for its employees, which we construe to mean that they think their employees should be able to continue parking on Truett Street. It's intrusive, and so to minimize impacts, maintain the residential nature of Truett Street, we're respectfully requesting that you direct the parking admin office to rezone the north side of Truett to residential zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Hoffman, were you did you want to speak, or were you just introducing?
Yeah, I was just going to finish up on the making a point of the letter that I submitted to you. I think it was November 16th when we were here. And I really, the Coordinating Council really wants to support these people because nobody seems to be supporting them. And the meeting I attended, and Councilwoman Friedman was there for a portion of that too. She came in later, and I had to leave earlier. Anyhow, the meeting they had with Disney and the residents was just a total wash as far as Disney committing to anything to help these people out. And I believe we really need to do that, and I would really request that you call a meeting with Disney again, and the Coordinating Council, we'd like to be involved in that. We have some people that are very interested in it because these people need help. And Councilman Weaver's comments at the last meeting were a bit cavalier in that, well, these were old homes and they were built, in a riverbed and all this stuff, and their soil wasn't compacted right when they built their houses and all that. But that's not their fault. These people were living there. It's their homes. And to contend that, well, they're old homes, they were built on this silt or whatever it was from the river, that's not pertinent to this. Disney should have taken more care, and the city should have been watchful into what they were doing. When you have 5 of these big earth movers running around at the same time, they do shake the ground. It's not these handheld compactors that were spoken of. These are these big earth movers. They're gigantic. And this process, this whole project, didn't have any oversight that it should have had. So I'd like to request that Disney, that we have a meeting again with the neighbors, with the residents who've been affected. And hopefully by that time, they'll have some data from their insurance companies as well. And I think the reporter who did the Rose Float story with Mr. Weaver that was in the paper this morning, he actually met with Jennifer and some other neighbors and myself last Saturday at that cafe over there, Victory Cafe, which happens to be a very nice place, and they got an art gallery in there. It was really amazing. It's a new place. You ought to all go over there and see it. They had excellent breakfast there. I couldn't believe it, so I'll put a plug in for him. But he's writing up the story, what he's finding and researching, and he will be submitting all his stuff to the city before he publishes anything to make sure there won't be any issues that he will get in trouble with. So anyhow, I'm again requesting that we have a follow-up meeting with Disney, and the Coordinating Council would like to be involved in that meeting. Thank you.
You? Bill Wiseman, newly elected chairman of the Transportation Parking Commission. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, city council members, city staff. My name is Bill Weissman from far north Glendale. First, I'd like to commend all of the council members and the city manager for the discussion you had this afternoon regarding parking for the Mita Plaza project. I was glued to the television set at home, listening to your deliberations on that, and I was very gratified to hear a lot of time and attention paid to the subject of parking, and in particular to the subject of mandating free parking for employees. I think that's a very crucial element of this project, and I was very gratified to see you moving in that direction. And while I'm up here complimenting people, I also wanted to commend the Glendale Police Department for the recent wrecked car displays. They are very noticeable. I certainly noticed them going up Verdugo, and I think it goes a long way to being an effective way of demonstrating to drivers what the consequences are of inattention. And in regards, Mr. Mayor, to what you said earlier during the council comments, I share your frustration and your level of upset at the continuing high level of pedestrian and vehicular accidents we seem to be experiencing in Glendale. And I'm here tonight to give you a few options that maybe you haven't heard about or haven't considered in terms of what we can do to help affect this problem. There's always talk about the 3 E's, education, enforcement, and engineering. And the 5 suggestions I'm going to give you here cover the gamut of all of those topics. And they're kind of in order from the easiest to do toward the hardest to do. The first thing is that under the California Vehicle Code, section 22358.4, you can, merely by ordinance or resolution, no engineering study required, drop school speed limits down to 15 miles per hour for 500 feet either side of a school property under conditions where the street is a residential street, there are 2 lanes, and the speed limit is 30 miles per hour or lower. That might be something you want to do at locations in Glendale where it's appropriate. There are also some new signal devices available. Some of them are these bright red LED no right turn indicators. And the way these work is if a pedestrian presses the button to cross the street, the indicator comes on automatically forbidding vehicles from turning right and conflicting with the path of the pedestrian. And again, there are some places where it's appropriate for this technology, maybe others where it would not be. But this is something new that you can consider. The third thing I want to mention is the city of Arcadia is currently equipping and training their police officers with high-definition video cameras, which are very inexpensive these days. And what these officers are doing are videotaping the school drop-off and pickups. And what happens is if they videotape a violation, like a parent double parking their vehicle, they don't do anything at the time, but later on, when the tape is reviewed, they will mail a citation to the registered owner of the vehicle as a way of helping to deal with the parent problem for school drop-off. One of the issues that is a little bit harder to achieve but kind of close to my heart since I graduated from a Los Angeles Unified School District high school back in 1971. When I went to high school, we had mandatory driver training and mandatory driver education. And I think if we are able to find ways to fund and create those opportunities in Glendale schools, it will go a long way toward helping us with the education of at least the future drivers in this city. And the last thing I want to mention in the time I have remaining is the program that the city of Albuquerque is currently using. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know what differences there may be between California law and New Mexico law that might cause this to not work in Glendale. But what the city of Albuquerque has done is they have declared a number of things that are, basically violations of the state vehicle code. They have declared them as nuisances under local traffic law. Just a very brief list: running red lights, driving while intoxicated, speeding, drag racing, road rage, taunting, exhibition of speed. These violations have been defined as nuisances that must be abated by assessment of fines to compensate the city and taxpayers who do not commit these violations, and drivers who fail or refuse to pay the fines create a severe nuisance that will not be abated unless the city temporarily or permanently seizes the cars of these drivers, possibly to sell at public auction, because the car is the instrumentality used to create the nuisance. So I will conclude at that point. Just wanted to give you some other things you might consider in terms of helping to improve traffic safety in Glendale. Thank you.
Very much. Mike Mohill, followed by Margaret Hammond.
Good evening, Mayor, Nigerian, and council members. My name is Mike Mohill, Transparency in Government. Look for position classification and compensation on the city website. This document is the city's policy for merit bonuses, which is a management tool given to the city executives, management, and mid-managers, employees. It is for certain employees who achieve an exceptional high level of excellence in their performance for which formal recognition should be made. Also, the website is the merit pay for calendar years 2000 through 2008. Over $1 million of additional tax dollars was given out by City Manager Jim Starbird. The following information stood out to me. Former Chief of Police, City of Bell fame, Randy Adams, and former Assistant City Manager, recently retired, Bob McFall, were both members of the exclusive club of city employees receiving incomes of over $200,000. In 2004 and 2007, Police Chief Randy Adams received merit pay of nearly $7,000. While retired Assistant City Manager Bob McFall received in 2004 and 5, 6, and 7 nearly $30,000 in merit pay. Other employees received merit pay in thousands of dollars, and why were they not city executives? And they were not city executives. Managers or mid-manager. These employees had no name printed on their public to see, but only their position. For example, secretary to the city manager, city planner, audit administrator, building official, mechanical engineer, civil engineer, urban forester, and the list goes on. Glendale City officials, year after year, repeatedly denied City Hall critic Barry Allen requests for the public records on merit pay, citing smoke and mirrors court cases. Why did the city capitulate this time? Mayor our Nigerian first reaction to the bonus was, wow, that's a lot. My second reaction was, why didn't I know about any of these? The mayor further went on and said, I think that was probably the thing that concerned me the most, is me not being aware. Unaware. No comments were made by other council members in the Glendale News Press. Mr. Starbird, of course, defended his position and his action. But I guess our mayor, city manager, and other council members are guilty of not reading the documents. When it comes to money matters, and can put the Glendale taxpayers on the hook for years to come, especially if these monies become part of an employee's pension calculations. It was only after the year 2008, during the current recession, when the city revenue shrunk, did the city manager stop being Santa Claus to certain employees. Mr. Mayor, you knew all about those bonuses, and you made it sound like you were ignorant when the Glendale News Press interviewed you for their story. Concerned citizens have been coming to this dais asking the city to release information on performance bonuses. How come in the past you never asked Mr. Starbird or staff if that information was true and available? That shows the public that you, sir, knew all along about those bonuses. Please do not be shocked again when concerned citizens ask about those credit cards, gifts to the city employees. Where is the transparency in government when city officials hide and do not make public documents available? Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret Hammond.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the council, staff, and audience. My name is Margaret Hammond, a longtime resident of Glendale. Well, it appears more and more things keep coming out. And of course, one of the things that I have objected to and will keep objecting to is Mr. Caruso muscling in on a private business that's doing well. They're very well thought of in the community, meaning the hotel. I mean, it's kind of almost like somebody in the mafia just muscling in to get a share of a successful business. And everybody that I speak to is just totally unbelievable. I can't believe that this is going on at this time. The other thing is that, pedestrians quite often cause accidents too. I've had several. They just are walking down the street. They don't even look at the cars. They're talking on their phone or whatever, paying no attention at all whether the light is turning or whatever. They just walk right across the street. They don't seem to feel that they need to stop at the corner and look both ways. And then there are accidents that are caused, for instance, on Glendale Avenue, there's a lighted crosswalk, and I was coming to it, and the lights were going on, and I thought, well, where's the person? And it turned out there was a big, huge delivery truck parked in a red zone covering the pedestrian on the sidewalk. Now, the pedestrian took off. He was on the right-hand side and walked out. And only that I kind of kept saying, well, where is he? Where is anybody? He would have walked, I would have walked right, he would have walked right into my car. So, pedestrians need to watch what they're doing too. We can do the best we can, but that when you're driving, it's pretty hard. You're watching the light, you're watching the other traffic, and so forth, and then for a pedestrian to just walk off the curb without any thought as to their own safety, it's stupid. And I've had women with baby carriages do that, just right across in front without ever stopping to see if the cars were going to go through or not. And then, at this time of year, the troops need to be remembered. I myself have taken down many boxes to the American Legion down in Newport Beach because they're close to the troops down that way. And I think we all need to keep remembering. They need it all year round, not just at Christmas. Anything we send them, they need to be remembered. They need to know that we're thinking of them and we care about them. Some of those boys are probably young kids, 18, 19 years old. And it's really makes me feel sad to think that they're going to be away at Christmas from their families. And I do think it would be another idea, the homeless, that we've opened up the homeless center over on Colorado, and that they need things like socks and underwear, more sweaters, because they can get showers there, and if they could have clean, dry clothing to put on, because the rains are going to be coming and their feet will be getting wet because they're allowed in, I think it's at 5:30 at night, and then I think they have to leave again at 6 in the morning. So, they'll be outside, and if it's raining, which it's supposed to start raining again this weekend, we should all think of how fortunate we are that we have nice warm beds, and, keep them in mind too. Anything that we can help them with, I think would be great. So that's kind of my thinking tonight. Is the holidays coming up, and we do enjoy a lot of benefits in this city and our homes, so think of the people that don't have homes, who've lost their apartments and so forth, not through their own fault, but just that they're out of work. So it's kind of sad when you talk to some of them. It really is. Now, Saturday night, the Doctor's House is open house again. The tour, the candlelight tour, and the gazebo will have music and refreshments from 6:30 till 8:30 on Saturday night. And again, it's beautiful to see it lit up. It really is. I was there last Saturday, and it's really something to see. It's you're not going to see anywhere else. Really a wonderful sight, that Victorian house that belongs to all of us in Glendale. Thank you.
Thank you. Last I have is a card from Mr. C.R. Legal requesting that council accept his documents into the record. And I do have a 4-page document, 5-page document, which we will be receiving and placing into the official record with the clerk. Thank you. I don't have any other cards.
Two things. First, I wanted to thank Mr. Weissman for coming. I thought that his suggestions were intriguing. I like them. The last one I'm not sure we can do in California, but maybe. Sorry?
There's a case out of Stockton that holds you can't seize vehicles
Case out of Stockton.
because the California Vehicle Code preempts anything that we do unless they specifically allow us to do it.
So we may not be able to do that one. But the other ones sound really like something we should look at. So I don't know where that's supposed to start. I assume it starts with your commission. So possibly, would that be the right place to begin a discussion of some of these as alternatives? Would be a Traffic and Transportation Commission?
Well, they can. We do have a task force of staff, including PD and Public Works and others, that are vetting lots of ideas that are coming in, and we'll be sure and provide Bill's information to them, and he may want to attend one of their meetings. I know we've broadened it a bit. We've included 2 representatives of the school district on our task force, and the input from Bill would be very valuable.
Right. Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a huge and important issue in Glendale. And anybody that has good ideas but is always welcome, but particularly Mr. Weissman, because I know he's been spending a lot of time studying this, even outside of his commission. So I do hope that you can, maybe if you're so inclined and you have the time to participate in the task force. I wrote down your suggestions, and I think the staff did too, so at least those, I can ask that those be added to the task force's list of things that they're, looking into, and so we can add those. But thank you for coming forward with those. And in terms of Truett Street, I'm sorry that they all left. I think we need to maybe have the city attorney at some point tell us what we can and can't do and shouldn't do, given that it's property dispute between 2 private property owners. In my mind, what makes it a little different is that the Disney project is a redevelopment project. So I feel that the city has some more responsibilities possibly than it would in a normal private property dispute. I don't know. I know that there are legal issues in terms of what we can do. I'd like to find out. And from the meeting that I attended, the neighbors certainly have a lot of what sound like very real grievances. And I think that Disney acknowledges that. It's just a question of who's going to do the evaluation, and it's a lot of procedural issues that are being argued over. And it's difficult because both sides are very entrenched. Disney's going to be paying for the seismic evaluations of the neighbors' homes. They want to use their consultant. The Truett neighbors want to be able to pick the consultant and have Disney pay for their consultant. You can understand the perspective from both sides' points of view, but you could also understand why, if you were either one of those parties, you would hold the opinion that you hold. So I don't know how far into that we can get and how much we can do, but at some point maybe we can have some kind of an opinion about what we should do and what we could do to at least help, without picking sides, to at least help facilitate it so they can move forward and maybe have some ground rules that everyone can agree on. I had suggested a mediator, but from what I understand, the Truett neighbors weren't interested in going to mediation. So, or maybe it was Disney, I don't remember at this point. Yeah, Disney didn't want to go to mediation, which is a shame, because I thought maybe that could at least help establish some ground rules, but we can't order them to. So, not that we don't care. I mean, I would love to see this resolved, but there's only a limit to what government can do between private parties. If the Homeowners Coordinating Council has any suggestions, I'm certainly open to hearing them, but just coming here and saying, solve this problem, there's really, again, it's private property versus private property owner. It's very difficult for us to get involved, as far as I understand it.
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, council members, we'll put together a little white paper for the council on some of the options that may be available. And again, you do have competing interests. One of the interests you hit on the head is this is a private property dispute. On the other hand, you've got this whole notion of where do you spend public funds to aid or assist. So we'll put together what I'll call a white paper.
Okay, because if we can help move this forward, I would really be supportive of trying to do that. I mean, it's hard to not have sympathy with the people who have been impacted by this construction. And if there are residents, and if we can help them in some way, we should, to the extent we're able to. And in terms of the parking, I would like our traffic department to look at the parking that's happening. True, it is a narrow street. It is a residential street, even though they abut commercial. They abut the backside of commercial. And we should look into, and if they're having those kinds of parking impacts, we should really take a close look at making that a residential zone for parking.
Comments? I do have a comment. As I saw the video of the folks at Truett and saw the extent of the damages they had, and my advice to them is to give me a call send me an email. I'll be happy to put them in touch with an attorney who will be able to assist them with a claim. The damages that I saw in those homes are significant, no less than some that I observed in earthquake damages. They would, however, face a one-year statute of limitations. I saw a February 19th date on the video. I'm assuming that that's the approximate time that the damages were incurred. If they do receive payment and their carrier feels that it is attributable to Disney, let State Farm, let farmers, let Safeco go after Disney and subrogate against them. But if they wait past February 19th and decide they want to make their own claim for homeowners insurance, it wouldn't be earthquake. It would still be under the homeowners coverage. They need to act quickly. I know many attorneys. Of course, I can't take it personally. There would be a clear conflict, but I can facilitate them obtaining some relief, making their claims, and then let the big boys fight it out as to who is responsible at this point. Let the farmers fight with the Disney, and more often than not, those entities of approximately the same size end up resolving their issues much more quickly than an individual going up against a large company. Any other comments? As far as Mr. Mohill,
It's not here.
bravo. Rehearse the script a little bit better than next time. I saw a few mispronunciations in that.
Get the line in there from the News Press editorial.
We did.
Yeah. But the smoke and mirror is legal.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Well, just if no one else is going to say it, I just want to wish everybody a very happy holiday, happy Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. I hope that everybody is safe and well and with friends and family.
So we will be gone. Thank you for reminding us. We will be gone until January 4th? 4th. And we will be adjourning in the memory of...
Don't we have to do business?
I have some
We have new
business.
business.
Okay, so that's not it. We do have 3 items, that's correct. So let me call first on Mr. Draymond for your motion.
Oh, my motion. All right.
No, I'm sorry. It's the small one.
This one. All right. I move that the city attorney be and hereby is authorized to pursue additional appellate review in the matter titled Ovasapian versus Frank et al. Case number is 09-55798.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Ms. Friedman.
I would like to move that the city attorney be and hereby is authorized to enter into a retainer agreement with the law offices of Colin Tuno and Levin to advise and represent the interests of the city of Glendale in the claim of AT&T Mobility and Singular Wireless for refund of taxes assessed on data service charges. The retainer agreement shall, in addition to other provisions, contain a fee cap for work as assigned by the city attorney.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Carroll,
Yes.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Mr. Quintero.
I move that the offer of Satani Gregorian and Allstate Insurance to compromise and settle their property damage claim for the total sum of $16,309.76. Allstate to get $1,378. Gregorian to get $14,931.76. Be and is hereby approved and accepted, and the Director of Finance and Administrative Services is authorized to issue warrant in said sums to the claimants for delivery by the City Attorney upon execution of appropriate releases.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes.
Do I, is there something here for Ferguson? No, that was just at 8B.
Be amended. So will I entertain a motion to adjourn in the memory of Michael J. Hagopian?
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.